Hello and welcome to another episode of Lord Splodge Gaming. This episode we're going to take a look at Ticket to Ride Europe, the game by Days of Wonder and the almost legendary Alan R. Moon. This is a Euro game. It's got a train theme, but I wouldn't so much call it a train game as more of a sort of placement game. But anyway, that's enough of that. Let's have a look at the game and how it plays. So this is the Ticket to Ride board. That's a fairly big board there. And I've put some trains on it to sort of give you an example. It comes with 5 different coloured trains for each player, as well as a coloured marker for marking the score around the edge here for the victory points at the end of the game. Now at the start of the game, we're going to take these deck of train cards, which has a number of train cards in different colours. See, white, green and so on, red. And some of these will be locomotives. See if we can find one. There we go. So locomotive is Wild. Now this is Ticket to Ride Europe, so it has some features on the board, but we'll get to those in a bit. So at the start of the game, each person is given a long route. Here, as we can see, this one is Palmero to Moskva, and that's worth 20 points. Oh, we have Brest to Petrograd, and that's also worth 20 points. You get one of those, as well as 2 of these standard routes. These are worth less, some are worth quite a little, so yeah, there's a 5.1, and some are worth a fair amount. This one there is worth 12, Berlin to Moscow. And during the game, each player in turn can choose to take 2 locomotives from the deck here that's face down. So they could take these 2. These are replaced. Now if one of these is a locomotive, they can only take the 1 locomotive from that pile. Now they can always take 2 from the top of the deck here. Now they could be 2 locomotives if they were lucky. And they can also pick a route card from the route card pile. Now what they do in that case is they'll take 3. So let's say they got these 3. Zurich to Budapest, Brest to Marseille, or Barcelona to München or Munich. They can keep all 3 of them, or they can discard 2, or they can keep 2, but they've got to keep at least 1. And finally, if they've collected enough coloured cards of the train cards, so these 2 here, they can lay their plastic trains down on that route. You'll notice on the board here some of the routes are grey. Grey means you can use any colour. The locomotives class as wild cards, so this would be 3 of any of the grey ones. And they do that, and you score X number of points depending on the length of the route that you've laid down. There's a handy, it's also printed on the board, but there's a handy card here. 1 length train gets you 1.22, 3 is worth 4, 4 is worth 7, and so on, right up until the 8, which is worth a massive 21 points, and that on this board is right at the top there. Which also brings us to another interesting point or variation from the standard Ticket to Ride, and that's that some of these routes have this symbol. Now that means they're a tunnel. So in this case, if I was to use these 2 cards to complete that tunnel, I would then turn over the top 3 cards of this deck, and if any matched that colour, or a locomotive, in this case 2, I'd have to play 2 more of the same colour from my hand to complete the route. At the end of the game, you count out the number of victory points are calculated on the routes you've done during the game, so 7, 4 and so on. And at the end of the game, you work out the final victory points, so that's you get 10 for the longest train, and then for each one of your routes that you've done, you'll get the points on it, so 21 for that one, so on. But you'll also take those points off for routes that you didn't complete. One final variation, and to do with scoring, is stations. Each player has 3 of these stations, and what they can do is place them to use a route, a single piece of route, to complete one of their routes. So if I place mine there for yellow, I can use Paris to Pamplona as if it was mine. I don't get the points for the blue train bit there, but I do get if I was completing the route London to Madrid and if I had yellows the rest of the way. 1 station for each bit of route. These are worth 4 victory points at the end, so they may be worth keeping. And they cost 1 of any coloured card for the first one, 2 for the second, and 3, including wild cards, for the last one. That's essentially the game. I was just going to show you one more bit. Some of the routes on Ticket to Ride Europe have a train symbol on it. That means you must use a locomotive in that route. So this one here requires a loco and 2 of any colour. So we could do that for that one as well. And that's the aim of the game. Complete the most routes, and whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins. So that was Ticket to Ride Europe. There's also Ticket to Ride, the original one in America, and numerous expansions for that, as well as Ticket to Ride Europe, this version, Ticket to Ride Legendary Asia, Ticket to Ride Switzerland, Ticket to Ride Markland, Ticket to Ride Africa, and a load of expansions. That might give you an idea that it's a popular game. Well, it's one of my favourites. In fact, I think it is, at this moment in time, my #1 all-time favourite game. Essentially, it's a very simple game. I mean, you place your trains, you pick your routes, but there's a heck of a lot of strategy behind it. You can choose to block routes, so you can stop other players going. Now, the stations in this makes it a little less cutthroat than America, because you can at least jump by one section, but the section costs you 4 victory points at the end. But you've also got to be aware of your own plans. You've got to build your own routes, because at the end you could have a route in your hand that costs you 12 victory points because you didn't complete it. That could lose you the game. Especially when areas of the board start to get tight, it really is a race to complete your routes. You're desperate to get the number of colours that you need for the route, watching what everybody else is doing. It's a brilliantly thought out game. 10 out of 10 from me, and if you're into games, or if you're the type of person that just plays Monopoly or that at Christmas, this game everybody should own in one form or another. It is simply brilliant. I can't sing its praises enough. Ticket to Ride from Days of Wonder. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned soon for another review.